Okay, welcome to today's Lesson A training. Before we do get started today, I just need to give you a brief disclaimer. Today's training is designed to instruct in some of the basics of QuoteCenter. We will provide some guidelines for using certain features within the software. However, nothing presented in this training is intended as, or should be construed to be, a recommendation to buy or sell any specific security. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risks inherent in trading. Equals shall have no liability for any investment decision based on the use of their software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection with the company. So our primary topics today are going to be the container, which is pretty much the shell of the program. So it's going to be a lot of options and configuration of those options and how they'll impact the program, as well as the portfolio, which is a control that allows you to track your own indices and baskets of securities real time. So to start with, what is the container? The container is an application that houses all the components of QuoteCenter, such as menus, toolbars, workspaces, and controls. It provides the environment and the tools to run and design workspaces. Managing screen real estate is as important as the data that is being displayed. And because the container has such an open architecture, applications as well as entire workspaces can actually be used outside of the frame of the container. These configurations of pop-ups are all saved as part of the overall workbook. Pop-up windows operate independently from the container. Pop-up windows float on top of workspaces and can be saved in a position outside of the container. You can configure your desktop to accommodate the workflow for your specific needs. In addition to allowing pop-ups to float outside of the container, entire workspaces can be configured as pop-ups and can also be positioned outside of the container. This gives you unlimited possibilities for desktop customization. And lastly, the entire container can be shrunk, leaving only the configured pop-ups visible. And next, we're going to just talk a little bit about the controls. QuoteCenter works with objects, which are known as controls. Each control is a self-contained module of functionality that exhibits its own predefined behavior. For example, QuoteCenter provides a data control for plotting graphs and numerous user interface controls such as buttons and checkboxes. You assemble these controls onto a worksheet and link them so that they interact. Furthermore, the container and controls support drag and drop, which facilitates the ease of use as well as the sharing of data between controls. Each control does have a unique function. You may not have access to all the controls depending on the level of service to which you or your organization subscribes. Controls are generally made up of two elements, a symbol or a symbol list, as well as a template. Some controls are designed to track a single security, while others can take lists of multiple symbols. Similarly, some controls allow you to modify the template used. You can create, edit, and save symbol lists and templates and use them throughout the system. QuoteCenter actually allows you to introduce any ActiveX compliant control into your workspace. By default, when you start QuoteCenter, the following controls are made available to you on the toolbox. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up QuoteCenter here. And we'll go ahead and bring up a list of the controls. And that's through Edit, Add Display. And here we have a list of all the controls within QuoteCenter. To go into a little description about each, we have Analytics. Analytics is an interactive display that gives you access to a vast array of analytical and historical data. A variety of displays for monitoring global market conditions and specific instruments are available through this control. Athena. Athena is one of the technical analysis products for QuoteCenter and is a full-service charting application that includes most standard technical analysis tools and indicators. Form display is what we would call a market summary window. Market summaries are available for several countries and exchanges. Marketwatch. Marketwatch is a dynamic monitor that allows you to watch a list of financial instruments as they are traded throughout the day. You can select many data items to monitor, including last sale, bid, ask, volume, and change for the day. Navigator is a navigation bar that you can customize with your own array of commands. News Story displays the news stories that are launched from Newswatch. It allows stories to be queried for specific keywords, copied to the clipboard, or saved to the disk. News Story supports text, graphics, hot clicks to other quotes, symbol news, and category searching. Newswatch is the real-time news headline monitor. This provides you with news from a variety of news and research sources. Newswatch provides extensive search capabilities for easily locating specific stories based on predefined criteria. OptionWatch presents option activity in real time, and this allows you to customize theoretical calculations and models. Portfolio allows you to track personal portfolios and custom indices and baskets in real time, and we will be going over more of that later. QuoteLine is a real-time quote monitor that is sensitive to security type. It is a single security display that has a predefined template. Several templates are available for QuoteLine and can be edited as well through more advanced options. TAS, or Time and Sales, displays quotes and trades, including the trade corrections and sale conditions, for stocks or lists. Time and Sales data extends back 21 trading days and can be viewed in two different formats that you can customize through the Time and Sales properties. The available views include dynamic tick charts, volume at price, and volume weighted average price. Ticker displays a continuous stream of information on selected instruments. And Zoom DynaQ is an add-on display to QuoteCenter that provides you with additional information for over-the-counter trading. Using Zoom DynaQ, traders can get a better feel for the market and execute accordingly. So with Zoom DynaQ, you're going to get a close-up of the full market maker depth. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about workbooks and workspaces. So this will hopefully clarify any questions you have, kind of on the hierarchy, the structure of how everything ties together. So to start with, you have a workbook, which is a file that comprises one or more workspaces and other associated files. And typically each workspace contains an arrangement of controls that provide information about a specific portfolio or market sector. The workbook employs a simple hierarchical structure. The workbook contains workspaces made up of controls containing symbols and showing a template of data fields. So that's really a good breakdown of how the structure works from a top-down approach. Workbook, then workspace, then controls, which have symbols, which are viewed by a template of data fields. Controls can be opened without actually being part of a workspace. However, once the session is closed, the configuration of the controls are not saved. By using the workspace, you can save the layout and the data configuration of these controls for future sessions. The power of your workspace is really unleashed by linking these controls so that when something happens in one control, such as a mouse click, the other controls also respond. The names of the workspaces appear on tabs at the top of the workstation frame, where I'm positioning the mouse cursor now, where you have Front Page, QC4X, and Workspace 3. You can move from workspace to workspace simply by clicking on these tabs. And just to cover a little bit about what's called quick apps, or also more commonly known as pop-up controls. Quick apps are free-floating controls. Typically, you run a quick app on an ad hoc basis. Quick apps are not saved as part of the workspace file. However, open pop-ups can be saved as part of the workbook. So to cover some of the methods of opening workbooks and workspaces and so forth, we want to start with that by going to the File menu. And to open a workbook, we would choose Open Workbook. We can see that the workbook extensions are .wkb. We would simply highlight the workbook we want and click Open. As well, there is an option for Recent Workbooks. Simply go to the File menu and mouse down to that option. Similarly, you can open up individual workspaces through the Open Workspace option. And when we click on that option, we can see that workspaces have a .wks extension on them. And similarly to the Workbook Recent option, we have a Recent Workspace option, which shows you the last several workspaces that you've opened up. And similarly, to actually save a workbook, simply go to File and go down to Save Workbook. If you want to save an existing workbook but under a new name, you can just choose Save Workbook As instead. Then you just simply enter the file name you'd like to specify on the file name line and click Save. Next, we'll actually demonstrate creating a splitter workspace. And what this means is, well, QuoteCenter allows you to display your controls within predefined frames or panes. So to do this, we need to go to the File menu and choose New Splitter Workspace. And there are actually gray borders or panes around the edges of the control. So to define panes within this workspace, we need to simply position the mouse around the borders right on these panes, left click, and hold down the left mouse button, and then drag the mouse cursor to the position that you'd like the pane to be. So as you can see here, we've just defined two spaces in the splitter workspace that we could put two controls into. We could also stretch or adjust these vertically as well by going to the left or right side and left clicking and dragging. And by doing it this way, when you add a control to these individual panes, you don't have to worry as much about sizing the control after you've plotted it. And I'll just show you a brief example of that. If we double click in the upper pane here and we wanted to put a Marketwatch, we can see that the Marketwatch is conveniently sized to the exact specifications of that splitter pane. Also, you may notice with splitter workspaces, the title bars are not displayed, whereas normal blank workspaces will show the title bar for each control by default. However, you can turn that off with properties as well. So we can quickly add controls by defining the panes, and even after you've added these controls into these panes, you can still actually resize the individual panes as you see fit, and the control will adjust accordingly as well. If you decided you didn't want one of these controls in one of these panes, you simply need to left-click your mouse to make that the active pane, then go up to the Edit menu and choose Delete. Okay, next I'll go ahead and just demonstrate how to open a workspace as a quick app or pop-up. And you can do this as the following. Go to the File menu and conveniently named Open Workspace as Pop-up. We can then pick one of these workspaces available to us. Better if we pick one that's not already opened, so we'll go ahead and do that. It actually opened up on my other monitor, so I'm going to drag it on over here. There we go. You can see it opens up fairly small, to where with a workspace that's not really enough room to work with. But you can adjust the sizes, the edges, or the borders of this pop-up control as well, just by clicking on the border and left-clicking and dragging the mouse to stretch that window. One thing you may notice along the title bar of this pop-up window, there's actually no minimize button. So that's an easy way to tell a pop-up control from the other built-in controls. You can only maximize or close a pop-up control. Or again, you can adjust the borders manually as well. Okay, next we're going to cover some of the menu items available for the container. Some of these we've already covered, but I'll just go ahead and briefly give you a rundown of these options. Under the File menu, you have New Blank Workspace, which of course creates a new blank workspace that you can then add controls to. New Splitter Workspace, same idea but with panes. The Close option, this closes the active workspace. You can also right-click on the Workspace tab up along the top and choose Close Workspace as well. Save will save the active workspace. Save As will save the active workspace but under a different name. Open Workspace as Pop-up we just covered. Opens the workspace as a standalone window that can be resized and moved about. Open Workbook will, of course, open or find a workbook file for you. Close Workbook will, of course, close that workbook. Save Workbook will save the active workbook. And Save Workbook As similarly allows you to save the active workbook but with a different name. Print will print the active workspace or control. Print Preview, pretty straightforward Windows option there. And Print Setup, of course, allows you to set margins, size, orientation, and so forth. Recent Workspaces we covered, and Recent Workbooks we covered. These two just show you the last 4 that you've looked at, or it will increase that count as you open up more. Exits will, of course, exit the program. And it should prompt you to save any unsaved updates to the workspace as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get to a workspace we have some things on for the Edit menu. Okay, so the first option under the Edit menu we have is Add Display. This option displays the Add Display dialog, which is used to add and dock the various controls to your workspace, and of course use the View menu, which we'll cover in a moment if you want to open up a specific pop-up control. Cut, copy, and paste are your basic Windows functions for cutting, copying, and pasting text. You can see once I've clicked into a control, that option doesn't appear to be available for all of the controls, but that basically are your basic Windows functions for cutting, copying, and pasting text information. Delete will, of course, delete the active pane or the active control from that pane. Select All is grayed out for these options, but basically would highlight all the contents of a window. Clear Selection will release any active controls. The next option is Add/Delete Visual Link. This is the exact same option that this link button is on your toolbar, just a different way of accessing it, but most of the time you'll probably just use this button. And next we have some options for what are known as styles, which we haven't really talked about yet. But basically, style of the selected control, think of it as kind of the colors, the styles, the properties that you set on that control. That allows you to save them. The next one allows you to manage the various styles for a control. This allows you to apply a style to the selected control. Make Workspace available on Quick App, Workspace Toolbar. This basically, exactly as it says, makes that selected workspace available from the toolbar on a drop-down list. And the Delete Workspace option right below just undoes exactly what this option does. The next menu over is the View menu. We have Workstation Settings. This accesses the Workstation Settings dialog, which is used to establish all sorts of global system settings. Most of those things you should not need to worry about, however. Data Layer Properties displays the Properties page for your data source, QuoteCenter. Most of these options you should not need to adjust as well. Pop-up controls is what allows you to open up a specific control as a pop-up. We showed you opening entire workspaces as a pop-up just a moment ago, but you can actually just pick a specific control as well, such as a Marketwatch, and set that as a pop-up control as well. And again, you can tell there's no minimize button on this control, so we know it's a pop-up. The next menu option down is Allow Pop-up Docking. And this, of course, just allows you to dock a pop-up control. Close All will close all Quick Apps. So this entire group really relates to Quick Apps or pop-ups. Status bar, which has a check mark on it by default, just shows or hides the status bar along the bottom of your screen. Function key display, this shows or hides the function keys at the bottom of the page. Allow app toolbars, basically this allows the individual controls to display their own unique toolbars. Marketwatch and Athena have these for examples. If this feature is turned on, a toolbar option will appear on the control's right-click shortcut menu, where you can then toggle the toolbar on or off as needed. So again, if that's enabled when you right-click in the various controls, we can see that for Marketwatch here, for example, we have that toolbar option. And when we click on that, it opens up a little floating Marketwatch toolbar. with just some of the more common properties and so forth, buttons that you would use. Message viewer, probably don't need to worry about that one too much, but just displays a message viewer that shows you basically the activity. Most of the time it's just showing you your login information, so most of you probably won't need to worry about that. And DDE server just displays information about the status of the DDE server, which is used to take the data from QuoteCenter and bring it into other applications such as Excel. And data feed status is a pretty basic window that just shows you the status of your connection. We can see here it just says green dot indicating a good solid connection and the status is ready. And the last option under View is Properties For. And Properties For changes dynamically based on which control is active. Since I last clicked on Marketwatch, it's putting the properties for Marketwatch here. However, if I had last been in the News Watch, when I go to View, or News Story, excuse me, it now shows Properties for News Story instead. So whichever is the active control, you'll have a Properties for that control. The next menu over is the Tools menu. The Tools menu does have a lot of advanced features designed for power users and programmers, and support for these features is limited or sometimes not available. But we'll just briefly cover these options. However, for most of you probably won't touch a lot of these options, such as Design Mode. This allows you to actually get into the Visual Basic script and edit the controls and how they operate. If you're comfortable with programming, this may be something of interest to you, but otherwise I would recommend not going into these options at all. The next menu over is the Window menu. Some very simple menu window options here. Cascade Workspaces will actually take them off of the tab mode here, which I personally don't prefer. I liked it in the tab view. But if you want, you can cascade the actual workspaces in the container. You can also cascade the controls. As you can see, this option is grayed out because we're in a splitter workspace. But if we were in a different workspace, we can see that option is not grayed out. Tile workspaces, same basic principle. It takes them off the tab mode up top and tiles them. And tile controls does the same thing, but with the individual controls. Again, with a splitter workspace, you cannot do this because you already defined the windows. But with just a new blank workspace, you can definitely do that. Then next and last is the Help menu, which we have Workstation Help. This is just going to display the main Help menu from where you can find the various topics. Indicator Legend. This displays the indicator legend once I click the right option here. And these are basically what they call indicators. When you have a control open such as Marketwatch, I'll go ahead and bring one open really quick here. You can see there is an I column just to the left of the symbol. And this isn't something you typically manually control, but as certain conditions occur, sometimes you may get a notification in this column. And since you probably won't know what that symbol means, you can open up the legend and look up what that symbol actually refers to. And the last option was just About Workstation, and this just displays the information about QuoteCenter, including the version number, the copyright notices and third-party acknowledgments and so forth. So to talk a little bit about styles next. Styles are user-defined preferences for a specific control. Most of the controls come with predefined styles, including a default style with installation. You can select the style of choice when you add the control to your workspace via the Add Display feature, or by double-clicking on a blank area of a workspace. And since I've kind of showed you that, but not the style specifically, let's go ahead and bring the Add Display box open. Let's highlight a Marketwatch. You can also pick a symbol list to load as you open the Marketwatch, or you can load the symbol list after. And similarly, you can apply styles through this Style drop-down field before launching it, or through those menu options you can apply a style after opening a control as well. So the workstation does allow you to create and save your own styles, apply custom styles to other instances of those controls, and delete styles from the system. And examples of some style settings may include the font size, the style and color of the text and the background and foreground colors, and various other properties specific to the control. Styles can also be saved for both embedded controls and pop-up controls. So to create and save styles for an embedded control, you want to first open the desired control, such as Marketwatch. Right-click, and we'll go ahead and go down to Properties. Choose Marketwatch. You would, of course, want to adjust the properties as you see fit. There are a number of options available. So basically, you just want to go through, make sure these options are where you want them. Background, foreground colors, grid lines. And once you've got the properties and so forth the way you want them, just click OK. And now, with this control still in focus, meaning it's the active control, we need to go to the Edit menu, and we would choose Save Style of the selected control. We would then enter a name for the style, and we can also save that as default, which would replace whatever the current default is. And then we click OK when done. And the new style will be added into the list of available styles. So if I wanted to save my own here, the next time I go back to Edit, and let's say I wanted to apply that, or just look at the listed ones by managing them, we can see my style is now listed in this list. You can see there's an option to delete, so you can control those styles from the Manage option as well. And similarly, to apply a style, we saw Manage. Just go to the Edit menu, choose Apply Style. Double-click on the style you want to apply. And it then applies that style to the selected control. You can also apply styles to pop-up controls. At this point, we'll want to actually go to a pop-up. So let's go ahead and get a pop-up control. And we'll go ahead and pick Marketwatch again. It's a little bit different with pop-ups. When you want to apply a style to a pop-up, you just have to right-click on the blue header bar, and you'll see there's an option here, Apply Style to Pop-up. We just go to the pop-up style we want, double-click on it, and it will then open that control with that style. Okay, that should pretty much cover the overview of the menu options and the styles. Just to briefly go over some of the additional workstation settings that you can set. We'll go into the View menu and choose Workstation Settings. And on the General tab, you can change various global system settings, such as how your workspaces auto-save your changes, clear symbol on broadcast. This box in the upper left corner where it says default is what's called the broadcast field. So you can have it actually clear the symbol that you type in there after you broadcast it. So just some various options available on the General tab. And the Color tab as well, you can define the color schemes for the workstation. You can actually also access the workstation settings from within a control by right-clicking on the control, going to the Properties option, and choosing Workstation Settings.